Hi! So I just want to real quick show you guys how to get a sort of pumping synth effect in Cubase Elements. Because since Cubase 11, this feature has actually been unlocked all the way down to the Elements level of Cubase. It has previously been exclusive for Artist and Pro. So we're going to use a feature called SideChaining. And just before I show you like how to actually do it, I want to show you, sort of explain how it works and what it does. So sidechaining is just like another way to use an effect. So usually when you use an effect, you put the effect you want to use on the track, and that effect makes changes to the track based on the input from this same track. So in our case, we want to use a compressor to just lower the volume. So based on the input from this synth, in this case, we would just lower the volume of the synth in the usual case. So what we can do with sidechain is still, we put the effect on the track, we change the volume of the track, but we base that on the input from another track. So in this case, the kick. So we can base the effect on the input of the kick and have the synth lower the volume when the kick hits. So that's what we're gonna try to achieve through sidechaining. And the way we do that, so we're gonna use a compressor. So you can use sidechaining feature with about any effect, but for the pump effect, we're gonna use a compressor. And like I said, usually we have the input from the synth, but in this case we want to have the input from this kick. You know, actually let's just show you what the track sounds like before. It's a very boring track, but it's an example, okay? So it sounds like this. Probably the most boring track I have ever written, but that's okay because we're just gonna learn. So we open our compressor, and then there are a couple of buttons here that are new in Cubase Elements 11 that we didn't have in 10.5. So there's the activate and deactivate sidechaining right here, and then there's the set up sidechain routing. So we want to set it up, and here's the list of all the tracks that we can use as input to this effect. And we want to pick our kick as the input to this effect, and then we can also just activate it from this menu, or we can activate it from that button over there. So we're going to activate that, and now this compressor is going to compress based on the input from the kick. So let's just look at the meter. I'm not going to do much right now, but just look at the meter and see that this gain reduction goes down when the kick hits, right? So that seems to be working. So let's just crank it so that we actually can hear the volume going down. So that's essentially kind of how it works. Now there's a few things to mention here. First off, like usually you don't use a compressor to just lower the volume. You use a compressor to smooth out like two big volume differences. That's by pulling down everything that's too high in volume and then pulling up everything. And that's usually done by a makeup gain. And makeup gain is oftentimes default to automatic. So in Cubase, there's this little button that says auto makeup gain. That is usually on by default, but I have turned that off for now. So just for demonstration, if we keep that on and we have the auto makeup gain, you'll notice that we don't get any pumping, we just get a very, very loud synth. And it's probably going to sound like actual garbage. So let's check it out. So we did get a little bit of pumping, but it's still just very, very loud. So turn that off. So that's kind of neat. And then you can still, we have the attack and release that we can use to So the quicker they attack, the faster the volume actually goes down when the kick hits. Then the faster the release, the faster it goes back up after the kick hits. So now we have an instantaneous attack and a kind of slow release. So we get this like italic V shape. But if we'd had a longer attack, we can have it go down like that, and maybe a shorter release, and it goes back up. So you can experiment with those for a bit. So like if we just do very fast attack, very fast release, it's gonna go like down, up, and we can hear how that sounds. So that goes back up pretty much instantly. What we can do, we have this hold button as well if we want a curve that looks a bit like instantaneous down, hold it for a bit, and then instantaneous up. So if we do the hold a little bit, so that's like almost like an entire new rhythm element. And suddenly it's offbeat. So that's kind of neat. So yeah, you can experiment a bit with that, and that's kind of how you get the pumping effect in Cubase Elements 11.